Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to break down a deeply frustrating manipulation tactic that, well, you've almost certainly encountered it. If you've ever felt totally exhausted by a relationship, a job, or an argument where your absolute best simply is never enough, you are definitely in the right place. We're relying on some brilliant source material to unmask a psychological trap designed to keep you running in circles. And by the end of this, you won't just understand exactly how this trick works, you're going to have a concrete, step-by-step strategy to shut it down completely. Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's put ourselves in the shoes of someone playing a game where the rules are constantly shifting. Think about a time when you were given a very specific task. You were told, hey, just do X and you'll get Y. So you put your head down, you do the work, you achieve exactly what was asked of you, and you proudly present your results. But instead of a reward or an agreement, you're suddenly handed a brand new, completely unexpected requirement. Suddenly, winning feels less like an actual achievement and way more like a mirage that just keeps disappearing into the horizon.
To really get a handle on this, we're going to follow a story from our source material about a guy named George. His sheer desperation here perfectly captures the emotional toll of dealing with a moving target. Imagine him sitting in his mentor's office, totally defeated, just saying, I don't get it. I meet every condition, and they still say not enough. It's like a game where the rules change every 5 minutes. See, George isn't failing because he's incompetent. He's failing because he's participating in a system that is completely rigged against him.
Section 1. An unwinnable game.
Let's look at the specific trap George fell into when he was trying to get a homeless help project approved. He proposed this wonderful plan to his board, and right here is where we start to see the mechanics of this manipulation play out in real time. A board member named David gave him a super clear condition. If you get 3 board members to sign off on this, we'll accept it. Okay, that's a clear metric for success, right? So George hustled, he did the work, got the 3 signatures, and proudly presented it. But instantly, David rejected it, stating a brand new rule. Well, now you need signatures from all the board members, plus the mayor's approval. Literally, George did exactly what was asked, only to have the finish line moved miles down the road.
And the tragic part of George's situation is that it's a bottomless pit. As Professor Mike, who is George's mentor in our source text, wisely points out, even if George spent weeks getting every single board member and the mayor to sign off, it wouldn't end there. The board would just invent a new hurdle. They'd suddenly demand the results of a comprehensive public poll or something else entirely. The excuses are literally never going to end, because that initial condition, it was never a genuine offer to begin with.
Section 2. Moving the goalposts.
This brings us to the formal name for the villain of our explainer, the moving the goalposts fallacy. This is a manipulative tactic where the criteria for success are continually changed just as they're about to be met, which keeps the target in an endless cycle of effort. The absolute crucial point to understand here is that they don't actually want you to succeed. They just want to exhaust you into retreating. They're either terrified of actually saying no up front, or they just get a kick out of the power trip of making you jump through hoops. So, they create this facade of an achievable goal.
To visualize just how absurd this is, imagine you're playing a game of football. You weave past the defenders, you line up your shot, you strike the ball perfectly, and it's heading right for the top corner of the net. But right before the ball crosses the line, your opponent literally picks up the goalposts, walks 10 meters backward, sets them down, and casually goes, "Oh, look at that. Your ball didn't go in. You missed. You lose." In an actual sports game, we would immediately call this out as blatant cheating. There's no way we'd stand for it. But in our daily lives, we often just kind of accept it and try to kick the ball harder next time.
Section 3. Real-world illusions.
When we map this ridiculous sports analogy onto everyday relationships, a really clear pattern emerges. It's not just happening in boardrooms, it's happening in our most intimate, essential interactions. Whether it's at work, in romance, or with family, the bad faith tactic is identical. Think about it. Your boss says, finish this big project and you'll get that promotion. You work nights, you work weekends, you deliver, and the boss says, great work, but we really need to wait 6 months to see how the market reacts before we talk about titles. Boom, goalpost moved. Or consider a partner saying, just spend more time with me. So you cancel your plans, you stay home, and then you hear, well, you're physically here, but I still feel like you don't care. Or the classic parental trap, right? Just get into college and we'll be proud. You get in, and immediately it's, but why didn't you choose a better major? The structure of the manipulation is exactly the same, every single time.
So here's the brutal truth of the situation. They never wanted to be satisfied. The goal is an endless cycle of effort. You really have to internalize that the problem is not your effort. The problem is not your intelligence, or your work ethic, or your capacity to love. The problem is their underlying intention to keep you running forever. Once you understand that you're fighting an opponent who has absolutely zero intention of letting you score, you realize that playing the game harder is just a losing strategy.
Section 4. The counterattack.
But listen, understanding the trap is only half the battle, right? We need to stop this manipulation in its tracks. When George asked his mentor for help, Professor Mike provided a truly brilliant counterattack strategy. It's simple. You must firmly lock on to whatever the very first agreement was and absolutely refuse to budge. Now, your instinct when a goalpost is moved is probably to panic, maybe argue about the new rule, or worse, just start running toward it. You must resist that urge. You do not negotiate the new terms. You anchor yourself completely to the original deal.
So here is exactly how you execute this defense in 3 psychological steps. First, stay calm and do not start running again. Don't show anger, just stop playing. Second, clearly and objectively state the original agreement. Just remind them of the exact criteria they set. Third, and honestly, this is the masterstroke, you force a choice. You make them choose between honoring their own deal or publicly admitting that they're acting in bad faith. By following these 3 steps, you completely flip the script. You take all that pressure off yourself and put it entirely back on the manipulator.
Here's the precise script Professor Mike gives to George, and it's a total masterpiece of communication. He tells them to say, "Friends, our initial agreement was that with 3 signatures, the plan would be approved. I met that condition. Changing the rules now is unfair. Please either stick to the initial agreement or officially announce you have no intention of accepting the plan so everyone's time isn't wasted." Notice the framing here. It's polite, it's incredibly firm, and it completely corners them. This script forces them to either drop their mask and admit their bad intentions out loud, or give you the win you rightfully earned.
Section 5. Taking back control.
Utilizing this script fundamentally changes your position, and the transformation is literally night and day. You go from being the victim, exhausted, confused, and trapped in an unwinnable cycle, to being an empowered boundary setter. You are no longer defending your work, you're exposing the manipulator's tactics and forcing them into a state of accountability. You take the spotlight off of your own perceived shortcomings and shine a massive, bright spotlight right on their dishonesty.
Armed with his new perspective and this powerful script, George's whole demeanor changes. He realizes that the only way to win a rigged game is to just stop playing by the cheater's rules. His stance becomes simple. Don't move your goalpost, because I'm not playing anymore. George finally realizes his own power, refusing to run the endless maze ever again. And honestly, the world desperately needs people who refuse to let manipulators continually rewrite the rules of the game just to suit themselves.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to look at your own life right now and ask yourself, whose goalposts do you need to stop chasing today? Is it a manager who keeps dangling a promotion just out of reach? A partner whose conditions for happiness seem to change with the wind? Or maybe a family member whose approval is just a constantly moving target? Whoever it is, you now have the tools to see the game for exactly what it is. You know the exact script to use to anchor to the original agreement. Stop running, stand your ground, and force them to make a choice. Thank you so much for joining me to break this down, and I highly, highly encourage you to put this boundary setting into practice the very next time someone tries to move the net on you.